Hello there, Stalker here, welcome back to another World of Warcraft video, and today we're going to be looking at the Shadowlands pre-patch changes for priests. So starting off with General, then Discipline, Holy, and then Shadow, which has had an absolute buttload of changes come for this expansion. So sit back, relax, time's on screen, let's go. Okay, so these are the general changes which will affect all classes of priest. Fade now has an additional effect of reducing the range of which your enemies can attack you. All priests can now use the following abilities, which is Shadow Word Pain, a word of darkness that causes shadow damage instantly and an additional shadow damage over 12 seconds, and also for Shadow Priests generates 4 insanity. Shadow Word Death places a binding that inflicts shadow damage on the target. If the target is not killed by Shadow Word Death, the caster takes damage equal to the damage inflicted upon that target. Damage increased by 175% to targets below 20% health. And slight PvP change is a new talent, which is Through Steal, which is peer into the mind of an enemy attempting to steal an own spell. If stolen, the victim cannot cast that spell for 20 seconds. It can only be used on humanoids with mana. If they are unable to steal a spell, the cooldown of Fort Steal is reset. So changes to Discipline. We have a few new abilities. The first one being Mind Shear, which will cast a corrosive shadow energy that radiates from the target, dealing shadow damage over 4.5 seconds to all enemies within 10 yards. We also have Mind Blast, which blasts the target mind for shadow damage and has an additional effect of preventing some of the next damage dealt by that enemy. Rapture now immediately casts Power Word Shield on your friendly target when used, and if no ally is targeted with Power Word Shield, will be cast on yourself and its duration reduced to 8 seconds. Shadow Covenant has been completely redesigned, so to make a Shadow Pact, healing the target and 4 other injured allies within 30 yards. For 9 seconds, your Shadow spells will deal an increase of 25% damage and healing, but you cannot cast holy spells in this time. That is on a 30-second cooldown and costs 5% mana. Holy Nova now deals reduced damage if there are more than 5 targets. And the following talents have been adjusted, with the new one being Spirit Shell, which has replaced the Luminous Barrier. For 10 seconds, Penance, Power Word Radiance, and the Atonement create Absorb Shields instead of healing. Replaces Rapture when talented, and the Spirit Shell does not have a global cooldown. And Schism now increases your spell damage to the target by 25% instead of 40%. Now on to Holy Paladin. Circle of Healing is no longer a talent and learned at level 39. Holy Fire's instant damage has been increased by 300%, but now has a 1.5 second cast time. Holy Nova now deals reduced damage if there are more than 5 targets. The following abilities have been adjusted with 2 new ones. The first one being Renewed Faith, which has replaced Enduring Renewal. Your healing is increased by 10% on targets that had your renew. And another ability is Prayer Circle, replacing Circle of Healing. Using Circle of Healing reduces the cast time of your Prayer of Healing by 25% for 8 seconds. Afterlife now also increases the range of your healing spells while in Spirit of Redemption by 30%. Apophis now also resets the cooldowns of your holy words when activated. And then a few PvP changes, a couple of new talents. First one being Cardinal Mending. Prayer of Mending now heals for the target for 10% of their maximum health, ignoring any health reduction effects. And Divine Ascension, you ascend into the air out of harm's way while floating. You are only able to cast holy spells. And Divine Attendance has been removed from the game. Now onto the Shadow Priest changes. Sit back, this is going to be a long one. New Mastery Shadow Weaving, which increases damage by 4% for each Shadow Word Pain, Vampiric Touch or Devouring Plague on your target, and during Void Form all targets receive maximum effect all the time. A new ability, which is Devouring Plague, which afflicts the target with a disease that instantly causes shadow damage plus an additional 4 shadow damage over 6 seconds, healing you for 300% of that damage dealt. Dark Force, which is a new passive ability. For each of your damage over time effects on the target, your Mind Flay and Mind Seer have a 2% chance to instantly add a charge of Mind Blast, causing it to be instant cast and allowing it to be cast while channeling Mind Flay or Mind Seer within 6 seconds. Void Form has been slightly redesigned, so it now has a 90-second cooldown and increases damage by 20% for 15 seconds. Void Form no longer reduces the cooldown of Mind Blast, but now refreshes the cooldown of Mind Blast, and you gain 2 charges while in Void Form. You no longer gain haste every 0.5 seconds as well while in Void Form. Void Eruption cast time has been reduced by 40% and no longer requires 90 insanity to cast. Shadow Apparitions has been slightly redesigned, so when you cast Mind Blast, Devouring Plague or Void Bolt, you also create a shadow version of yourself that floats towards all targets afflicted with your Vampiric Touch, dealing shadow damage upon impact. Critical strikes will cause 2 apparitions to be created. Shadow Word Death no longer generates Insanity. Mind Blast Insanity generates 8 instead of 12. Vampiric Touch generates 5 instead of 6. Void Bolt generates 15 instead of 20. And Mind Seer generates 6 instead of 8. So quite a few new talents coming to Shadow Priest in this one. First one being Deafen Madness, which is replacing Shadowy Insight. If a target dies within 6 seconds after being struck by Shadow Word Death, you gain Sentry Insanity over 4 seconds, and the cooldown of Shadow Word Death is reset. Unfurling Darkness, which is replacing Shadow Word Void. After casting Vampiric Touch on a target, your next Vampiric Touch will, within 8 seconds, is an instant cast and deals shadow damage immediately. This effect cannot take place more than every 15 seconds. New talent, Psychic Link, which is replacing Shadow Word Death. Mind Blast deals 50% of its damage to all targets inflicted by your Vampiric Touch for 40 seconds. Another new talent is Searing Nightmare, which will replace your Dark Void. Instantly deal shadow damage to enemies around an area and inflict the Shadow Word Pain. If an enemy is afflicted by Shadow Word Pain, Searing Nightmare's damage is increased by 185%, only usable while channeling Mind Seer. Damnation, which is replacing Lingering Insanity, which will inflict Shadow Word Pain, Vampiric Touch and Devouring Plague free of cost. New talent, Ancient Madness, which will replace Dark Ascension. Void Form increases your critical strike by 30% for 15 seconds and reducing by 2% every second in use. Hungering Void, which will replace Legacy of the Void, which is a Void Bolt which causes the target to become vulnerable to the Void, increasing damage taken from the priest for 6 seconds. Void Bolt cast on vulnerable targets will also extend the duration of Void Form by 1 second, 2 seconds if it crits. This effect can only be active on one target at a time. Shadow Crash has been redesigned to hurl a bolt of slow-moving, far-reaching shadow energy at the destination, dealing shadow damage to all targets within 8 yards of its destination. If Shadow Crash hits a lone target, they suffer 25% increased damage from your next Shadow Crash within 15 seconds, and stacks up to twice and generates 8 Insanity. Void Torrent no longer poisons your Insanity while used, but now applies Devouring Plague and refreshes the duration of your shadow damage over time effects while channeling. Surrender to Madness no longer generates 100 Insanity when used and has a 1.5 minute cooldown instead of 3 minutes. Additionally, Surrender to Madness now has a heartbeat sound effect that speeds up as you reach the end of your spell's duration. Just a bit of more way of knowing when it's coming to an end. And then a few PvP changes, which is one new talent called Lasting Plague, which increases your duration of your Devouring Plague by 6 seconds. Driven to Madness has been redesigned so that the cooldown of your Void Eruption is reduced by 3 seconds when you take damage, and Shadow Mania has been removed from the game. Okay, so if you've enjoyed, don't forget to push the like button and comment down below. Of course, subscribe if you're new to the channel, follow me on Twitter, link down below as always. Of course, I've been XLQX, and I shall see you in the next World of Warcraft video. Thanks a lot for watching.